Welcome to P3 Radio.
The monkey only dances as good as the guy grinding the organ handle.
Pachow! 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 Pachow!
This is ridiculous.
Truck goes to Dwight.
My daddy's wiener is big as a Coke can.
Cool story, bro.
Hey, genius, it's 2 p.m. Central.
Morning! Why are you shaking like that?
PG3 Radio.
Here's your host, Josh Riley,
I got a boner right now.
Richard Mullican.
Our listeners probably want to hear more about this rat coat.
It's showtime! It's showtime! It's showtime!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of P3 Radio. I'm Richard Mullican, joined by my co-host and best friend, Josh Briley. Say hey, Josh.
How's it going, man? Are you fired up about today?
I am fired up about today. You know, you don't realize how horrible your entrance is until you have somebody of higher stature on, right?
Yeah, you get that magnifying glass on it, and then you kind of start...
That's going to look bad on us.
Yeah, looking into the mirror, so to speak. Oh, well. How's it going, man?
It's going, man. We've got a big show today. Big guest lined up for a little bit later. But, man, we got Christmas coming up, and I'm excited about Christmas. Are you ready for the holidays? Have you bought your wives something?
I have not bought my wife anything yet. Did you say wives?
Well, I was doing the P3 cookie commercial that we had. Have you bought your wives something? Have you bought your Ernie Ladd here? No. So you haven't got your wife anything yet?
Not yet, man. I'm still kind of fishing around to see, what her final choice will be in the gift department. But I still got a couple more things to get for the kids as well.
Oh, wow. Luckily, we finished everything like that really early on. So earlier than normal for us. But, man, I'm excited about Christmas. And I got a little bit of a Christmas gift this past week. It was me hitting this microphone really hard with my elbow. But I got a really good Christmas gift this week. I actually did some production for our friends at FRM, Front Row Material Podcast, with Mikey Whipwreck and Jerry Lynn and Mike Freeland over there. Actually did an audio intro. They didn't, just being the opportunist that I am, I noticed they didn't have an intro, and I'm like, hey, try this, and threw something at them, and they liked it so much that they played it on their show.
That is awesome. That makes me proud of you, man.
Well,
you're really doing a good job.
Can I get the gold star back on the fridge?
It's still silver. It's going to stay silver.
What will I have to do to get the gold star?
I'll email you later.
Stop pointing at that. I'm not doing that. But no, it's a big day for us. We have a guest that we've been trying to get on for a while, and it's just been one of those things. When he's had time, we haven't been able to be here. When we've had time, he's been busy. It's just been chaotic, and we finally got him on. Excited to have him after the break. Josh, what's going on with you?
What do you mean?
Anything going on with you new?
Well, just, regular old BS, but... do you know something I don't? You're like, yeah. So did you get that in the mail? Did you find out you're losing your house?
You hadn't gotten the test results yet. Okay, cool.
You kind of talk like you knew something, but either way.
Well, if you're a wrestling fan, we know why you're here. It's because we have a great interview coming up right after the break. Josh, who should we hear from this week?
Let's go with P3 Cookies. I'm in the festive mood.
So after this commercial from P3 Cookies, we're going to be right back with...
JEFF, JARRETT. It's Ernie Ladd here, and I'm trying to ask you something. Are you prepared for the Christmas holidays? P3 Radio, Richard Mullican, Josh Briley. Are you ready for the Christmas holidays? Have you bought your wives and your children something?
Well, I tell you what, I haven't bought them anything yet, but I might go to Edible Gifts Plus by going to our link, tinyurl.com/P3cookies. They have all the edible gifts for special occasions, for holidays. Shop by category if you go to the website and you're just reading right off of it. They have specialty treats.
They got NBC cookies.
They have NBC
They got
cookies.
Facebook cookies. They got cookies that look like diseases. I'm telling you, they got all kind of Christmas cookies.
They have great baskets and corporate gifts. It's basically what you want to do if you want to go there and get a baked good with something personalized on it. If you want to say Merry Christmas on a sugar cookie, you can get that at Edible Gifts Plus by going to tinyurl.com/P3cookie right now. Save some money for the holidays. Don't go out. Don't spend your gas. Ernie?
Definitely don't spend your trans money that you get from all the young boys that's paying you for all the trans from show to show. Now, let me ask you something. If I wanted to get a cookie that said Ernie Ladd on it, do you think I could get one from the ediblegiftsplus.com?
I guarantee you could probably do that. I haven't researched too much about this sponsor, but I feel confident that you could, Ernie.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Maybe you should just go to tinyurl.com/P3cookies, and you might get you a special gift. Maybe Ernie Ladd will come and sign some autographs for you.
Go to tinyurl.com/P3cookies now and say, Happy Holidays with Edible Gifts Plus.
The Chosen One.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to P3 Radio. Josh Briley and Richard Mulligan here, and I'm excited. Josh, are you excited?
I am super excited. Richard, do you know who we have on the telephone line right now?
Right now, joining us on the P3 hotline, former heavyweight champion, former Intercontinental champion, TNA founder, WWE Hall of Famer, and most recently, he was the 12th man at the most recent Titans game. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, joining us on the P3 hotline, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, thank you for being a part of P3 Radio. How's it going, man?
Good, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. And, yeah, I almost wish you would have led with the latest 12th man of the Titans that was a part of a record-setting night. And Derrick Henry – no, I'm kidding.
Oh,
it
no.
was a lot of fun. I will say that. It's fun for myself and my family and getting to see a lot of my friends from Fox Sports television and obviously all the Titans gang and the executives and stuff like that. So it was a fun night. It certainly was. And I guess I can now cross that off my bucket list, being the Titans 12th man.
Oh, that's awesome because I'm a huge Titans homer, and I was sitting there. I was pleasantly surprised to see you on there. It was like two worlds colliding for me.
Yeah.
But growing up in the wrestling business, as you did, were you a fan of it? Was it like football in Texas? Did you have to be a fan of it, or was you not interested? Who were some of your favorites if you were a fan growing up?
Well, I'm one of 5 kids. I'm the only one that got into the business full time. My sister dabbled in it for a couple of summers, but I'm the only one, and my brother did just a little bit way back when. But no, I'm the only one that pursued a career out of it. Actually wrestled, and then helped set up the ring, and it just way back in the day, refereed and set up the ring. And my earliest job, first job in the wrestling business ever, was putting up window cards in small towns all over with my grandmother, all over Kentucky and Tennessee. So I've always been, and to this day, if you call yourself a bigger wrestling fan than me, well, you better back it up because I do. I still love it today and love where the business is going and everything going on. And man, it's never ever. Now it depends on, you can classify this and slice and dice it, but as far as complete awareness of the wrestling industry, it's never been bigger. Live events, you can say they're doing better than ever around the globe, or you can slice it up. There's so many different ways to look at it, but the business is very healthy. And yes, I grew up in it, always loved it. And, for as long as I can remember, I've been a huge wrestling fan.
Well, with so many people in your family that was in the wrestling business, did you always know it was a work, or is that something you just picked up on over time?
Well, how old are you?
36.
Okay, so you're just old enough probably to remember a little bit about back in the day, just how it's drastically changed. So
Right.
it was I was raised in the business from the time like I said, my earliest memories, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever it may be. The inner workings of the business were never discussed. It wasn't. It wasn't something that was quote unquote completely hid from me. It was just specifically, but it was the nature. It's how the business works. So, obviously at a young age, like all of us, you begin to question, and there's playground talk and school talk, and then at the matches and different, the older teenage boys, and I'm a, elementary school kid or a middle school kid, and you hear wrestling's this, wrestling's that, and you just, as time evolved, like we all do, I was no different. You sort of started putting 2 and 2 together, and And I was obviously very fortunate that I was got to travel, quote unquote, the circuit, and you'd see the same matches, maybe not identical, but whoever it may be would be in this area. If you faced them on Tuesday, you probably faced them on Wednesday, and you probably faced them on Saturday. So there's a lot of the same matchups. So you begin to piece together things. So no, a guy my age, you grow up around a business, and it was protected, and rightly so.
Yeah, and to Josh's point, Josh's grandmother, we've talked about Danny Davis being his uncle. Josh's grandmother used to make gear and tights and all kinds of stuff for the boys, and there would be times that he would come over, and he'd go, "Man, Bill Dundee was at my house. He lost a loser leave tail match last week. He's not supposed to be here." But I think the nail in the coffin, Danny was running the OVW wrestling camp back in, I think it was 96, and Josh come home one day and he goes, "Nope. It's not what we thought it was." And we were like 11 or 12 at the time. And he said they were training them how to do everything. And it was just like, oh my God. It was like finding out Santa Claus wasn't real or something, or the Easter Bunny wasn't real.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, when I was 6 years old, I got into a little scuffle at school when one of the kids found out who my uncle was. He was in the wrestling business, and he came up on me and, started a fight or whatever. Did any of that ever happen to you?
All the time. It was, that they, you get in little scraps, but then, whether you're on the football field or basketball court or whatever, other kids, it's just what happens. It's what kids do. So it's a part of the business. My first year in the business, different guys, as I look back on it, they made sure they laid it in. And my dad, probably just as equally, he made sure the other guys laid it in. It's just the nature of the beast, and it's something that I'm glad that I got to experience and go through, and it certainly gave me a different perspective on the business. And as I've gotten older, human psychology plays a lot into day-to-day life, and it's something that as I look back on, I learned at a very early age some of those type things.
When you were getting started, who would you say were some of the guys that helped you out when you first started wrestling?
Well, Tony Falk, I had my very first match. It goes without saying. And I worked around the loop with him for, I don't know, month, 2 months, something like that. But, I got in the ring with, Tojo helped me with selling early, really, really early in my career. But to me, one guy that as I sit here today and I look back on my career, for 18 weeks, somebody counted up. It's either 16 or 18 weeks, so 4.5 months every night, 6-7 nights a week. Sometimes wrestled 8 times in a week. Me and Belly Travis. I had a multitude of partners. It was Pat Tanaka, but anyway, it was me against Akio Sato and Tarzan Goto. But Sato sort of took me under his wing, and it's on the job training, but man, it was so vital for me to learn the basics of the business, because every night after the match, some were good, some were bad, some were in the middle, but I certainly got to wrestle. When I look back on it, it's somewhat amazing. In 4 months, so however many times, over 100 and something matches in a 4-month period against the same guy, sometimes single, sometimes tag, you can't help but learn. And it's something that nowadays guys get in the business. And again, that was in front of a live crowd and a different crowd, which was, Nashville had its own personality, and Louisville and Evansville and Memphis and spot shows and all that. Each crowd, at an early age, I was very blessed with the opportunity to know that this crowd's different than this crowd's different than this crowd. And you're basically, your ear, a lot of times people don't even realize today that there's a real certain amount of, when you hear things out there, how the crowd reacts, and not just when they don't react, but if they do react, how they react. So I got lucky. I certainly got lucky to have that opportunity. But there was a group of guys, but Akio Sato jumps out, and Tony Falk does too.
Well, you mentioned him earlier. Do you have any good Tojo Yamamoto stories that you could share?
He had a special sauce that he made. I call it Hawaiian, Japanese food, fried rice. Man, he was a great cook. He was very, very, very much a stickler on not just selling, but how you sell. It's all in your face. There's story after story after story. He tragically left this world, and it goes his pride. We had no idea. Well, when I say we, my father had no idea how down and out Tojo had become, and he was a very, very private person. My dad was as close to him as literally anybody, and Tojo took his life, and no one had any idea just how precarious and bad the situation had become for him. So, but man, the good times I remember Tojo was running up and down the road, and he was always the driver. He loved to drive, but a unique guy, and drew a lot of money in this area.
One of my trainers when I first started wrestling, and I was only in for about 10 years, but we've had him on the show before. It was Superstar Bill Dundee. And in doing our homework, we found an old Memphis Wrestling video where you were reffing a match, and Dundee was putting the boots to you pretty good. And I think he was part of the angle when you first started wrestling from reffing, if I'm not mistaken. Or he was part of that angle. What was it like working with Dundee at that age?
Well, Bill was, that was the angle that transitioned me from, and when I look back on it and how everybody involved in that angle went on to play a part in my career in a long-term situation, and that's pretty unique in and of itself. But Bill was the heel, and I got to work with Buddy Landell years later, off and on. But Bill was a guy who really close to my dad, and a mainstay around here. He lived a quarter of a mile from where we live, so obviously his son Jamie, and we grew up in the business. But that original angle was Dundee and Landell, and then Dutch, who throughout my career, it's almost bizarre how our career paths, from Tennessee to the WWF. To Puerto Rico, to the days at TNA. Me and Dutch have worked together off and on for years, and he was a part of that angle. And then obviously my dad and Lawler came back from a loser leave. So that angle, that sort of started things. And that's the very first angle I was in, Memphis TV. I remember it, and it lives on YouTube. And but man, it was when I look back just how good Bill and Buddy and those guys, I didn't know what I was doing. I was totally clueless. But those guys, the sensitivity and the emotion that came out of that was compelling. And to this day, it's that emotional attachment to a character, to a talent, to a storyline, whatever it may be. It's that emotional attachment. That's what that moves the needle, whether it's a ratings point or a pay-per-view buy or a T-shirt sold, whatever it may be. It's the emotional attachment, and if it's not there, we don't have a business.
Who did you like riding with from town to town early on in your career?
Oh, gosh. Frank Morrell's right up there at the top. We traveled a lot of miles. He was the referee here. Frank had been a wrestler for years and years and years, and super successful, and it came time where he transitioned from getting, out of full-time wrestling into refereeing, and we did a lot of miles. Probably out of the 7 years I worked from 86 to 93, I was full-time in my family's promotion, and probably all but about a year of that I traveled with Frank almost daily. So I don't think there's really a close second. Of course, I traveled with a bunch of different guys throughout those times, but 95% of the time it was with Frank.
We've followed your career ever since you started, to be honest. We've watched Memphis Wrestling. Being from Jackson, Tennessee, we've watched Memphis Wrestling all the way up from when we were kids, of course, like with Danny's connection. But for most of all of 1991, you teamed with the Tennessee stud Robert Fuller. Whose idea was it to pair you two up?
What's really cool about that, obviously me and Robert got to work together for the WWF as Tennessee Lee.
Right.
But my dad, we'll call it the Fuller Welch family, and my dad's mentor was Roy, which would have been Robert's grandfather. So our families had worked together, and Robert had owned territories, obviously promoted him and his brother Ron. And Robert had an opportunity to come in, and he stayed around a couple of years. And Robert's another guy that, I talked about Akio Sato in the ring, but as far as really traveling up and down the roads and working with me on different promos and stuff like that, I always grew up watching Lawler on Saturday morning TV, and Dundee would obviously rattle off some good interviews, but day in, day out at shows, at TVs, Robert was a guy. So my dad thought it would be a real good idea for us to team up, and we did. And I first started out, he was my opponent, and Robert taught me a lot of just being around guys like that who had drawn And when I say drawing money, not just themselves, they had been a part of booking, been a part of multiple territories, and seen things that work and didn't work, and just being in the industry like Robert had. He was a third generation. He is a third generation guy, just like myself. So you take a guy like him, you can't help but learn from him if you just shut your mouth and open your ears. And Robert was that guy. So, we wrestled each other, and I had different partners, and then we were partners, and then we, went up to WWF. So my time spent around the Tennessee Stud or Tennessee Lee or my man Robert Fuller, I remember fondly.
Working with the WWF, who came up with the country music star Double J persona?
That's been answered. You got to come up with something original, but I'll answer it for you. No, it was a collaboration. Vince McMahon, and still operates this way to this day. The buck stops with him, but he knew I was from Nashville. I'd gone up, and we'd done a couple of things as I was wrestling here in Tennessee as a babyface. But I knew I wanted to be a heel. He certainly believed in that, wanted that. Looked at my name, and he said, "Spell your name," and we spelled it and played with it. And Bruce Pritchard obviously played a role, major role in producing the original vignettes, and just the country music singer. And that's me. I'm a huge country music fan. Never planned on making music my career because wrestling did come first. It was the family business. But no, all that came together somewhat organically. But then, when you get into the DNA, the machine, those days called the WWF, now called the WWE, things become bigger and bigger and bigger for life. And the pinging of the gold tooth with the vignettes and the lighted up jackets and riding the horse to the ring and all that kind of stuff. The music video, hell, the damn song is as popular today as it was back then. So that character was well defined. I've said that recently on an interview, what made that character, stick. And I just said from the very beginning, it was very well defined. And that I'm certainly not taking credit. I got to give, Vince and Bruce and a whole host of production, Kevin Dunn and David Zahadi did that video. There's so many people that went into to defining that character.
Well, man, I tell you what, whatever it was about it, it really stuck with me because I swear to this day, if I'm ever, researching a show and I got to look you up or I just see your name, I don't just see your name. I see JEFF, the whole spiel. That's what I see. It really stuck with people.
Now, when we had Brian on earlier, Jeff, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but when we had Brian on, we asked him this question, and we said, when we've asked actually a couple of guys that used to be back in the WWF days, this same question, it all revolved around one guy that it came back to. Their same answer was this guy. So the question was, what was the best rib you saw? And it always reverted back to something Owen Hart did. And since you were the man that teamed with him for a long time in the WWF, we'll just ask you flat out, what are some good Owen Hart stories that you could share with us?
Well, again, I always take this opportunity whenever I'm asked about Owen is, and I let others tell the rib stories because there's one after another, and I don't think anyone's better than the other. You can watch my Hall of Fame speech on the WWE Network. I thought that time was appropriate, and I was asked, and I quite frankly, I think it was. Yeah, I mean, it was generally his last major rib with Edge and Christian, two young Canadians, and we put rubber noses, clown noses, right in the middle of a match. That was the height of the Attitude Era and Allstate Arena in Chicago, sold out, and we're putting on big red rubber nose clown right in the middle of a match, and so that was all Owen devised 100%. So there's so many of them, but man, what a human being, and I'm happy to say that Martha has commissioned a documentary that's going to be coming out next year. It's hard to believe it's going to be the 20-year anniversary anniversary of Owen's passing. So lots of rib stories, but I like to always focus back on just the human being. I've never met a guy with more integrity, and that's who he was. Husband, father, family man, just all the way around. What a guy that Owen, what a guy Owen was.
When we know you're running out of time here with us, Jeff, but I do have 3 more questions for you. I'll make them quick. Where was the wildest crowd that you ever wrestled in front of? And I know there was this image on TNA Wrestling one time where I saw from Puerto Rico, I think it was chunks of concrete coming at you and hitting you in the face and the head and everything. So I imagine that was one, but where was the wildest crowd? And have you ever been attacked by a fan where you had to fight your way out?
Well, Mexico multiple times. Puerto Rico's had some pretty. We did my good longtime friend Jeremy Borash played the role of a referee that night, and it was me against Ray Gonzalez, and they thought Ray had won the NWA championship, and then on a technicality, and rightly so, I was awarded the belt back, and that and again, we're crossing paths. Dutch Mantell was involved in that. They were. We stayed in the dressing room for quite some time after that. Let the people empty out of the building because they were really hot that night. Mexico, on numerous occasions. I have, obviously we'll call it the WWF career, the WCW, TNA. But it's, there were times in WWF, WCW, as far as, your heat as a heel goes up and down, but sustained heat over, 15 years now, 12, longer than that. Yeah. However long it's been, 10, 15 years in Mexico. But man, just this year, they pelted us with everything. And when I say us, being Karen, but back just this June, it was me and Rey Mysterio and Dr. Wagner. And Ray was the champ. Ray Wagner was the champion, and we did a finish, and Conan was involved, and I became champion. And they were pretty rough, and a guy tried to get us right as I was rolled out of the ring, right beside the ring, and then they threw a bunch of stuff. So, man, it's hard to name one, but yeah, there's been multiple circumstances in Mexico. Just this year, I went back, had a hair versus hair match this year, and the following TV we went to, first time me and Wagner faced each other, a guy tried to come over the rail as I went to the ring. So, as a performer, that's when you're doing something right, I believe.
Well, we always like to wrap these things up by asking what your advice would be for a person wanting to get into the business. But we're going to put a different spin on this for our last question, because there's all these rumors coming out about a new promotion starting up. We will just leave it nameless. But there's always somebody out there that wants to start up something that competes with the upper echelon of wrestling organizations. And that has come out recently with certain superstars that have that you once had in TNA. They're starting to look like they're going to put together a promotion. What advice could you give to somebody that was wanting to start up their own promotion if they were looking to be successful?
To start up a promotion?
Yes.
I want to make sure I answer your question.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that I, I'll just say from 2002 to 2009, it was a very, was it all mapped out and planned out? Obviously no, but once we got on Spike and the direction we were headed is, worry about your bottom line and only your bottom line, and don't worry about anything else, because, the more productive you are, and today's climate is drastically different than it was even 5 years ago, let alone 10 and 15 years ago. And when you have I used to call them the 8,000 pound gorilla. Now it may be the 800,000 pound gorilla with the WWE. With the network and NXT UK, they just got back from Chile. Obviously NXT 205 Live, Raw, SmackDown, the Hall of Fame program, just everything they have. The days of WWF and WCW and the Monday Night Wars, that's as archaic as basketball without a 3-point line. You're not going back to that.
Right.
You're just not. But there is a lot to be said. Again, the industry, the distribution methods have radically changed. If Spike TV, from, like I said, 2008, 2009, we were the flagship show, and we're very, 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 very healthy business. You duplicate that today, I don't think it's necessarily you get a Spike deal that you're successful. It certainly helps things, but nowadays, and you look at, I'll call it other brands, even the super, super, super successful ones, and I'm talking about the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball just got back from the winter meetings, and when you sort of hear the infrastructure and Major League Baseball, then you have all the AAA, AA, single A, rookie ball. There's so much going on, but when you hear how much the digital age is involved, and now digitally, it's we all think of the real simple ones. Oh, that's YouTube and Netflix. It goes so much deeper than that. So if you're starting a promotion, the digital age is the bullseye. That comes before anything, because that is how this generation and it continues to evolve. Literally, if not monthly and weekly, daily. But it's the all important how your product's going to be distributed, and you're going to have to learn to cut through the clutter. The good thing is the wrestling industry's super successful. I go to Germany next week, and got Mexico. I just came back from Scotland, headed back to United Kingdom. Got multiple trips lined up for next year. So it's an international business. Lots going on from India to UK to Mexico, and several points in between. But again, it does sort of, it used to be TV in the 70s and 80s that you guys drew up on, WMC. It was that Saturday morning time slot. Then we got into the Monday Night Wars, and that was sort of the end-all, be-all. And now it's digital age. So if you're starting a promotion, I know I gave you a long-winded answer. If you're starting a promotion, your digital product is the most important thing, in my opinion.
Well, he's been a champion everywhere he goes, former world heavyweight champion, intercontinental champion, WWE Hall of Famer. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. Jeff Jarrett, it's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it, guys. You have a happy holiday season. For sure, be safe. And let all your listeners out there, if you want to check me out on Twitter or Instagram, I'm at Real Jeff Jarrett. So hope you guys, again, have a great holiday season.
He speaks fluent Klingon, backwards. The best story he's ever told was to himself. Of the two women he's slept with in his life, one fell asleep, the other thought he was someone else. Dogs take him for walks. He is the world's most semi-interesting man.
I don't often smoke, but when I do, I only choose Vista Vapors.
Visit them today at tinyurl.com/P3Vista.
Keep it flavorful, my friends.
When you go shopping for wine, do you look at the labels? Do you stare at the price and wonder if the wine is worth the expensive tag? Well, stop it, because Wine of the Month Club has you covered. Every month, Wine of the Month Club is going to send you 2 bottles of high-quality wine right to your front door.
And what better way to say I'm thinking of you than a subscription to the original Wine of the Month Club for a friend or a sweetheart. Each month they'll be reminded of your thoughtfulness and will receive the monthly wine letter and newsletter binder. Recipes, wine knowledge, and great wine, and the opportunity to get more of their favorites is at hand. Give with confidence and joy, knowing that you're a part of the original Wine of the Month Club.
By the way, there are no dues, no fees, no hidden charges. Cancel anytime with no obligation. Just pay no more than $23.96 plus shipping for 2 great bottles of wine. Go there now. Sign up by visiting our link, tinyurl.com/P3wine. That's tinyurl.com/P3wine. The Wine of the Month Club, the original wine club since 1972. Well, that's going to do it for us here at P3 Radio. Just still on Cloud 9 right now that we had Hall of Famer Jeff Jarrett on our show this week. Thanks to him for being a part of P3 Radio.
Oh, yeah, man. Super nice guy. 1,000 thanks wouldn't be enough.
And if you're new to our show and you want to follow us on Twitter, Josh, how do they do that?
We are at P3 Radio, the number 1.
And if they want to give us a call, leave us a voicemail, text message, what number do they call?
731-300-6675.
Yeah, that's a 24-hour line. You can call at any time, leave us a voicemail, text, prank call us. We don't care. Whatever you want to do on that line.
We might air it. You never know.
Yeah, we might air it. You never know. But that's the ways you can reach us. For more shows on our podcast, you can go to whatever you're listening to now, type in P3 Radio, and look up our interviews with superstars like Bill Dundee, Headbanger Thrasher, Mikey Whipwreck,
Conrad Thompson twice.
Super Bowl champion Jabari Greer,
2-time Olympic gold medalist Summer Sanders.
So the interviews are there. Go and check those out. You might like those if you like this one. We appreciate you listening tonight to P3 Radio, or if you're listening to in the daytime or mid-afternoon, say around brunch. Whenever you're listening to it, we appreciate it. But for Josh Briley, this has been Richard Mulligan saying thanks once again for listening to P3 Radio. Thanks once again to Jeff Jarrett. And thanks to all of you for listening. This has been P3 Radio. I'm going to say it one more time. P3 Radio, Josh. Say it with me.
P3 Radio.
Good night.